Hey guys, it's me, Seren, back with another video. So as you can see, I cut my hair. Um, so I actually had a whole series of videos that I was going to post about me cutting my hair to kind of ease you guys into it. But some things have happened in the United States because racism never fucking sleeps that I felt um, compelled to make this video about. Um, and it just didn't seem right to wait like a week or 2 weeks to bring you guys this video because of my hair, because my hair is not that important. But yeah, so I've cut my hair. So I do have, like I said, I have a couple of videos that I wanted to post. So if you guys still want to see though, like I don't have to post those. One was going to be on Stranger Things. One was going to be a PSA, kind of similar to this one. So if you guys still want to watch those, you can let me know in the comments and I'll still post them. But like I will have long hair in those videos because I already recorded them. But this is how my hair looks now because I cut it all off. And I also recorded myself cutting it if you guys wanted to see that. So let me know. But anyways, that's not what this video is about. PSA. This video is a PSA. PSA, whiteness is aggressive. Whiteness is aggressive. So the idea for this video started kind of percolating around in my brain a couple of weeks ago when I was talking to Anthony's, who I've mentioned before. In other videos, I'll have his Twitter handle in the description box if you guys want to check him out. But he was talking about states of whiteness and how does whiteness operate in the world? And he said in the beginning of his thread that by whiteness, he didn't specifically mean white people. And I thought about this when I was reading about the shooting of Keith Scott in Charlotte. He was actually shot by a black officer. I believe his name is Brentley, which he was shot by a black officer, and you have a lot of people saying like, oh, well, he was shot by another black officer, so there's no way that it could be anti-black. And it's just like, well, when we talk about states of whiteness, a lot of the times we're also talking about ideas about white supremacy, which live inside of all of us until we actively work to unlearn them. They live inside of black people as internalized anti-blackness, and they live inside of white people as racism until we, have our awakening, until we unplug from the matrix, and we actively work to unlearn that. So in reading about this, shooting death of Keith Scott by this officer who they were saying he had a gun. His family members and witnesses that were at the scene said he didn't have a gun. They said he had a book. He was waiting for his son. He's also disabled, which kind of adds another layer to this whole thing. And this shooting, this police brutality, has led to an uprising in Charlotte, which I fully support. And I'm going to get to a little bit later about my feelings on this uprising in particular. But so in addition to thinking about, states of whiteness, I've also recently saw a really good article on the Huffington Post and also a really good Twitter thread. I'm sure the Twitter thread probably came first because they usually do, and then they get scooped by mainstream media, which then doesn't want to pay, which is a whole other video and story. But it was on the past of Betty Shelby, who is a white female officer in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who shot Terence Crutcher. Now, there was video of this. I didn't watch it. You guys know that I don't watch videos because police brutality is not torture porn, and I feel really uncomfortable about the way that we consume these images, and the kind of normalization of it is something that just kind of plays on a background loop. I have a video on that. If you guys haven't seen it, please watch it. There will be something popping up in the right-hand corner. But so Betty Shelby, who was a white female officer who shot Terence Crutcher, she shot him in the back, killed him as he walked away from her towards his car with his hands up, right? The article about her, which again I'm sure was inspired by the Twitter thread, discussed how she had a past that included excessive force charges, it included domestic disputes, it included restraining orders filed against her, it included drug use. This is the background that would be drudged up to paint a black victim as a thug, and yet, this is not something that's really being discussed in mainstream media about this woman's background, and instead they're running these pieces of her talking about, oh my God, I was so scared. I was so fucking terrified. I was just scared for my life. I've never been so scared for my life. And I just had tunnel vision. And, I just didn't even know that I was pulling the trigger. And then he just fell down dead and it's just not my fault. And I was just so scared. Like, well, bitch, maybe you shouldn't be a cop if your fucking nerves are that bad. Like, maybe you should get into another profession. But she's not being framed as a thug based on her background, right? And that kind of goes hand in hand with this other conversation that I saw being held about the framing of people and the framing of violence and how only certain types of violence are acceptable, namely violence that seeks to uphold, white supremacist imperialism, violence that seeks to uphold capitalism, violence that seeks to uphold the status quo, violence that seeks to uphold our police state, the war in Iraq, and then it's support our troops, and then it's patriotism, Kaepernick. That is acceptable violence, yet violence that seeks to dismantle white supremacist, capitalist hierarchies and imperialism and, violence like the uprising in Charlotte that destroys private property, that challenges capitalism, that challenges racism, that challenges oppression. Oh, this type of violence is unacceptable. This type of violence is unacceptable. And violence that is a reaction to white supremacist imperialism is unacceptable, even if the white supremacist imperialistic violence happened first, making this a cause and effect. It's still unacceptable. It's still unacceptable, right? Which I've talked about in my Houston video. It's like white people live in some alternate reality where cause and effect is not a thing, where when people uprise in Charlotte, they don't understand how it got to that point. It got to that point because people are tired, and they're tired of being passive, right? Because whiteness is often framed as passive. Whiteness is often framed as passive. It's often framed as invisible, even in the way that we talk about it as activists. We talk about, whiteness is invisible, whiteness is the norm, whiteness is the standard. That's really the type of wording and language that we use around it, that as if whiteness is this kind of passive, invisible thing. But is it really? And all the stuff that I've been thinking about and reading and going back to states of whiteness, all I could think about was that whiteness is actually so aggressive and blackness is expected to be passive, right? Like cause and effect, it flies out the window when you're dealing with whiteness because there are no consequences, there are no actions and reactions, there is no cause and effect. Whiteness can be as aggressive as it wants to be, and blackness is supposed to just passively take it and take it and take it. And when you stop passively taking it and you uprise like in Charlotte, people are aghast, and now all of a sudden it's unacceptable violence, even though the violence that's being enacted against us is completely fine and completely acceptable and completely excused away by the state, right? Because we frame whiteness as passive. But it's like whiteness is aggressive. Pulling a trigger is aggressive, right? Historically, whiteness has been aggressive as fuck. Like invading continents and disrupting culture and destroying culture and assimilating people into your culture is aggressive. Calling the cops on people minding their own business, fucking John Crawford, fucking Tamir Rice, calling the cops on people minding their own business is aggressive. You didn't have to call the cops. You could have looked out your window and went right back to your own business. But you made the choice. Yes, 911, that's aggressive. That was an act of aggression, okay? Gentrifying neighborhoods is aggressive. Writing think pieces on how you gentrify that neighborhood and where to go to get the best food and where to go to do the best this and the best that so your fellow invaders know where to go. And then making sketch apps. Oh, this place is sketchy. That place is sketchy. That is aggressive. Stealing people from a continent and bringing them over here to fucking work in the hot sun for you is fucking aggressive. The way that whiteness functions in our society is extremely aggressive. But we frame it as passive. We frame it as though things just happen to white people. Oh, and I was just so scared, and I was so scared for my life, and I had tunnel vision, and I didn't even know what I was doing, and I just pulled the trigger, like as if it was just this passive thing that happened. No, it was aggressive. It was aggressive. It was aggressive. Like in my book haul video, when I said how I felt assaulted by whiteness in the bookstore, it wasn't passive. It was very aggressive, right? Meanwhile, blackness is framed as aggressive, but so many of our expected behaviors in this society, in the way that our blackness is supposed to operate, you know, like how we're talking about the way that whiteness operates, the way that our blackness is supposed to operate is in a passive way. Keep your head down and just try to make it to the next day is passive. Shut up about fucking oppression and wait until the right time and wait until the right moment, because taking a knee during an NFL game is not the right time and it's not the right moment. That is passive. Shut up about cultural appropriation and who the fuck cares about wool dreadlocks on a Marc Jacobs show is passive. Accept these microaggressions without complaint is passive. Again, wait your turn, wait until the right time to protest is passive. Remain peaceful, which is something that people fucking chant like a mantra, but what does that shit even really mean? Like, remain peaceful means remain passive. Remain nonviolent means remain passive. It means keep on taking your oppression, which is aggressive, which is violent, which is acceptable violence, in this passive way. Because as soon as you stop taking it passively, now all of a sudden, oh no, you're violent and you're aggressive and you're rioting and you're doing this and you're doing that, and that's just unacceptable. We are conditioned to think of our blackness as aggressive when really we're expected to put on this caricature, this reenactment, this show, I'm trying to think of a word like act, like an act, like this, you know, this act, this performance. We're expected to put on this performance of blackness as passive, as nonviolent protest always, as remain peaceful always, as hands up, as taking a knee, letting people touch our hair, remaining passive, explaining over and over and over and over and over again that racism and systemic oppression are real despite the mountains of evidence backing it up, and engaging in these debates with these white people that feel like racism is just an intellectual, exercise because they're sitting from their place of privilege. But you can only push passive people so far before they fight back. And then you see Charleston, and then you see Houston, and then you see Baltimore, and then you see Ferguson, and I stand with those people 100%. And then people throw their hands up in the air and say they don't get it because they don't understand cause and effect, because they don't understand being passive versus being aggressive, and because our blackness is expected to be passive at all times. Something you can rape and murder and pillage and plunder and steal and discriminate against without any consequences from the state or even from black people themselves. But guess what? The people of Charlotte are tired of being passive. And that's what you're seeing unfold. Black people are getting real tired of being fucking passive. The fucking Negro, docile, meek, and mild, beware the day that we change our minds, because the day is the day is here, but the day is also coming, right? The people of Charlotte are tired of being passive. They were passive after 23-year-old unarmed Jonathan Farrell was shot 10 times by a fucking white cop when he sought assistance after getting in a car accident. And what led to that? He knocked on the door of a white woman that then called 911 and said he was breaking in. She said he was being aggressive. He got in a car accident. He wasn't drunk. He just got in a car accident. It was late at night. His car hit some trees. He couldn't get the doors open. He crawled out the window, bleeding, got to the nearest house to knock on the door and ask for help. She called 911 and said, "This black male is breaking into my house. I'm alone with my baby. I'm so scared." She cast herself as the passive white woman against this aggressive black man, this passive whiteness against this aggressive blackness. But really, who was the passive person in that situation? The person that was knocking on the door for the help. Who was the aggressor? The one that fucking called the cops, who then came and shot him 10 times, killed him, murdered him. And then it went to a mistrial because they couldn't decide that they wanted to fucking find this man guilty. And then guess what? The city of Charlotte had to pay his family $2 million, which taxpayers need to be tired of fucking paying out these cop settlements anyway. Y'all need to start, I mean, I pay taxes too. We all pay taxes because capitalism, but, you know, like, we need to start holding people accountable for that shit too, because they don't have money for fucking the school systems, yet we have to pay out $2 million for fucking cop settlements after they fucking kill black people. Like, no, like, we're tired of being passive. We're tired of being passive. The shooting of Jonathan Ferrell happened in 2013. We're in 2016 now. The people of Charlotte have been passive for 3 years. They're tired of being passive. They're tired of talking. They're tired of protesting. They're tired of candlelight vigils. They're tired of nonviolent protests. They're tired of being peaceful. And you're going to say, oh, remain peaceful, remain nonviolent, remain passive. You know, nothing is getting done, and people are tired of being passive. And every time you say remain nonviolent, remain peaceful, you're saying remain passive. Keep your blackness passive in the face of this white violent aggression that is seen as acceptable. Black people are tired of being passive. We're done being passive, especially in the face of whiteness that is clearly aggressive, because PSA, whiteness is aggressive. This has been a public service announcement. Peace.